In this video, we will learn how to use the difference of squares, and let's look at our first example. So if you don't know how we can use this formula over here, in this video I will teach you how to understand the formula. And if we can make, for example, in problem number 1, we have to try to put the problem in this format. As you can see, we have it in we have a difference, which means minus, so we have that, so we can try to put it in this format, and if we can make that possible, we can have our final answer as a minus b, a plus b. Now let's work with the first problem. Now think how we can make this x, which represents a, look like this, have this square outside. Well, like this, right? So think about 4. 2 times 2, right, will give you 4. So see, we have the format, which is this one here, a, and we have this one here, which is the squared, right? So far, so good with this first problem. Now, minus different sign. Now, b is represented by y to the 14th power. Think now, how can we have, what can give us y to the 14th power? Well, 7. If we multiply the exponents, 7 times 2, that will be 14, y to the 14th power. It's very simple, right? Now we have y that represents b, which is b, and the 2, which is this 2. Now you see we have both terms giving us that format, the difference of square. Now whenever we have this, now we have completed, so far we have completed this formula here, but now if we can put it in this format, we will get this factored as our final answer. So we can go ahead and we can take x squared, because x squared is x to the second power, is literally representing a, only a. Don't get confused. This one is this one over here, and the y over here, the y to the 7th power, this is representing b together, okay? And this is the 2. This is the format we need over here. I hope you are understanding and you are noticing these important ideas. Now let's write it. Let's write it in this format: a minus b, which is x squared minus 7 minus y to the 7th, and now we just switch the signs, which will be x squared plus y to the 7th power. See, that is our first answer for the first problem. Now try this one by yourself, or try to work this out on a piece of paper, and let me know if we get the same answers. Now you know, right, the difference of square formulas, we need to put it in this format here. So what I like to do is I really like to just write the term like this, x, and then I will simply write minus, and let's write y. And I like just to put the 2's outside and think about what can give me 6 over here. Well, x to the 3rd power, if I multiply 3 times 2, will give me 6. Now what can give me 10? If I multiply 2 by 5, that will give me 10. Very simple. Now using this format, I can quickly go ahead and write the final answer as x to the 3rd power minus y to the 5th power. Now in this format, with the plus sign, we write x to the 3rd power plus y to the 5th power. Let's try more examples. What about this one over here? Now let me add some numbers, and let's try this first one. Now that you know the format and the basic foundation of the formula of difference of square, it should be simple, right? Now think about it. How can we do this problem? Well, first, before we do anything, we need to factor, right? So let's look over here. We have 9y to the third power 25 minus 25y. So both these terms have y. So we can basically, we are reducing, or we can factor that y to make it easier. Now, whenever you factor, it's like you're dividing the 9 over here. Let me show you. It's like you're dividing the y, right? This is 1, so that will be minus 1. This is simple exponent rules that you should be aware of. So this will be 9y to the second power. Now we have minus, well, if we divide 25y divided by y, that's 1 here, so 1 minus 1 will give you 0, so we will simply have 25. Now I'll put it in parentheses. Now we cannot factor anything else, so now let's think about the first term here, which is a, and this one, which is b. Now let me put this one in parentheses. I really just like to write the variable if it's possible, right? And I'll write the 2 outside. Let me write minus here, and let me write the 2 out here. Now think about it. How can I get this format here? Well, just think about 2 multiplied by 3, right? If you multiply 2 times 3, you will get 9. If you multiply 2 times y, you will get y squared. So here we have it. We have the first a, which is 3y. Now think about this 25. How can I get 25 when this square is outside? Well, 5 times 5 will give me 25. So we have b now, which is 5. Knowing this, we can go ahead and we can write our final answer. 3y minus 5, and we will have 3y plus 5. But don't forget this variable here. You have to write it outside over here. So now you have your final answer. Now let's try another example. Here's another example. 80y to the fourth minus 5. Okay, so how to solve this problem here? Before starting, I'll always recommend you to see first if it's a difference of square problem. The minus sign is here, right? So it's a pretty high probability that this is a difference of square. Next, what to do? Well, see if you can factor, if you can reduce anything, right? Of course, on this problem here, we can factor this 5. And now, how many times does 5 go into 80? So if you multiply 16 by 5, 5 times 3 times 6, that will be 30, times 1, that's 5, plus 3, that's 80. So 5 goes into this term 16 times, and we simply rewrite this, and we write this as, well, 5 divided by 5 will give you 1, right? So we're factoring that 5 out, we will have 1. Now that we can reduce, we can factor anything else out. We think about the formula a squared minus b squared. Let's think about that. So I will simply write it like this. Let me write just like this. This is the format we want to have, right? This is like a is here, b is here. That's what I wanted to think about always. Now think about it. What number multiply can give me 16? Think about it. Well, if I multiply 4 times 4, will give me 16. Now, what about the variable y? That's a 2. 2 times 2 will give me 4, right? And now, 1 square will always give you 1. And don't forget the 5 that we factored out. Right, so we can go ahead and we can write 5 for y squared minus 1, and let's write 4y squared plus 1. But let me tell you something. You might think that this is your final answer, but like I say, right, always look for difference of square. Let's look over here. Look at this one over here. Tell me, is it a difference of square? Yes, it is. We're not finished yet. So let's go ahead and let's solve this one over here. So let me write it over here. Let's write 4y squared minus 1, because we're not finished. We need to still factor this one. So how to do this, right? Simply think about the formula. I like to do it like this. Parenthesis 4, 2 outside, 2 outside. Now think about it. 4. What number multiplied by itself 2 times will give me 4? That is 2. And what about the y? Will simply be 1y, right? If you multiply, you should get this a over here. Now, well, you know that 1 is simply 1. Even if it's squared, right, will give you 1. Now you have the answer as 2y minus 1, 2y plus 1. Now think about this. Can we factor this farther? No, we can't. That's the farthest we can get, right? So now we can go ahead and we can write our final answer. Let's write it down. So our final answer will be 5. Let's rewrite these two, because this one represents this one here. So that will be 2y minus 1, 2y plus 1, and this one here, that will be 4y squared plus 1y. And if you're asking yourself, why can't I factor this one? Because I'm telling you, some people have some questions that are very important to listen to. They will ask, why can't we factor this? Well, we can, because this is not a difference. It's not a minus sign, and that's the reason we can factor it. So in this case, that's your final answer. What about this problem here, which can be a little tricky? Let's take a look at it. 25x squared plus 121. Looks very difficult, and you may be asking yourself, is this a difference of square? Well, look at this sign here. It's a positive sign, so you might think it's not a difference of square, but look closely. We have a minus sign over here. If we flip this like 121, we will have minus 25x squared. See? It is a difference of squares, so you have to be really careful. So the best thing to do over here is to go ahead and factor. I'll always tell you to factor. So we want this always to be positive, okay? So let's factor out. What can we factor out? Well, if we cannot factor a 5, we cannot factor a 25. The only thing that we can factor in this case is a negative 1. Now, if negative 1, so if negative divided by a negative here will give you 25, positive 25x squared, and 121 divided by negative 1 will give you 121, negative 121. Now, this looks more something that we can deal with. Okay, so and this one here is simply negative. You don't have to put the 1 next to this problem. So now let me write it in the a minus b format, a squared minus b squared. Now let's think about what number multiplied by itself can give us 25. That is 5. Now what about the x? Well, that will be simply x. Alright, so the minus sign here, and now let's think about 121. What number multiplied by itself will give us 121? If you know your times table, you should know that 11 multiplied by 11 should give you 121. So let's go ahead now. We can rewrite our final answer with this sign here. Don't forget the sign, which represents negative 1. That will be 5x minus 11, 5x plus 11. Okay, so there you have it. I hope these problems open your mind to the possibilities of how we use a squared minus b squared, the difference of squares formula.